to explore strange new worlds and boldly go where no man has gone before. Oh, and hello and welcome to How to Fix It. I've been playing a lot of Star Trek Online lately, and their new expansion brought in another set of voice actors from the show. This time they got Robert Duncan McNeil from Voyager. So now, still only needs to get Robert Beltran, Jennifer Lien, Roxanne Dawson, and Kate Mulgrew, and they'll have reunited the entire cast of Voyager. On that subject, Star Trek Voyager gets a lot of crap. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not my favorite Star Trek series, but it's not the worst. Sure, between who was running it, the writing, and some of the acting, the entire thing was a mess. But it's not a bad Star Trek series, it was just misguided. Arguably, it was more Star Trek than DS9 was, since Voyager was all about strange new worlds and DS9 was about a space station. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, let's get to it. Star Trek Voyager is about the crew of the USS Voyager in the 24th century. The series revolves around the titular ship trying to make it home after getting stranded 70,000 light-years away from Earth. The captain is Catherine Janeway, played by Kate Mulgrew, who, if you don't know from Star Trek, you probably know from Mrs. Columbo or Orange is the New Black. Now, you kinda need to have seen a little bit of TNG and DS9 to understand some of this, so I'll fill you in here. Janeway is tasked by Starfleet to track down a bunch of Maquis rebels, who are rebels living in the demilitarized zone, which is a buffer between the Federation and the Cardassian Union. During the Cardassian occupation of Bajor, the Cardassians also occupied some Federation-born colonists' home after the Federation ceded them in a treaty. Starfleet viewed them as traitors, and the Cardassians viewed them as terrorists, so there was really no winning for them. Basically, Chakotay and B'Elanna Torres, played by Robert Beltran and Roxanne Dawson respectively, are rebels and former Starfleet officers trying to escape Starfleet and the Cardassians. Their ship, however, has an unexpected passenger. Someone they believe to be an ally is actually Tuvok, played by Tim Russ, a Vulcan who was sent by Janeway to infiltrate their crew. When they disappear, Starfleet sends Voyager out to find it, and Voyager also disappears. It turns out that the Maquis disappeared because of a being called the Caretaker. They're sent to the Delta Quadrant, where the two crews are forced to join since the trip killed half the crew of Voyager, including the first officer, chief engineer, and chief medical officer. Chakotay and B'Elanna take on the roles of First Officer and Chief Engineer, and the Chief Medical Officer position is given to the EMH, or Emergency Medical Hologram, who is the holographic doctor on board, played by Robert Picardo. Other members of the crew include Ensign Harry Kim, played by Garrett Wang, a kid fresh out of the academy, and Tom Paris, a former Starfleet officer who was ejected from Starfleet for covering up a pilot error during his first assignment. He was later sentenced to 18 months for a bar fight with the Maquis. Janeway gets him out of prison because he's the best damn pilot Starfleet has ever seen. And she needs him to pilot Voyager. After they get to the Delta Quadrant, they find a world inhabited by the Ocampa, who are being protected and sort of exploited by a being called the Caretaker. The Caretaker's array is what dragged them into the Delta Quadrant in the first place. He's dying, so he's about to give the Ocampa enough stuff to last 5 years after he's dead. They run into an Ocampa, Kes, played by Jennifer Lien, and her Talaxian friend, Neelix, played by Ethan Phillips. Neelix is annoying. I do not like him, because the only time his character was ever endearing to me was in Star Trek Online, and probably only because Star Trek Online has decent writers on staff. Anyway, the Caretaker abducted them because he was trying to find a mate so the Ocampa wouldn't be alone. He failed. Meanwhile, a race called the Kazon are trying to take the array for themselves so they can take over the quadrant. This leaves Janeway with a moral quandary. Use the array to return home and then let the Kazon do whatever they want with it, or destroy it and strand themselves. Obviously, she picks the latter, and thus starts the much-maligned series. Throughout the run, they run into more species like the Hirosian, more Kazon, and of course, the Borg, which led to them getting 7 of 9, played by Jerry Ryan, as a crew member. So, that's pretty much the show, a ragtag crew of people who hate each other trying to achieve a common goal, returning home. concept wasn't bad. Red Dwarf did the whole stranded from Earth, separated by years thing before, and it worked. The difference is that Red Dwarf had a much more endearing cast of characters. That's not to say any of the actors are at fault. They're all pretty solid actors everywhere else. I do like the stranded thing, because it really gives the whole explore new worlds thing a new meaning, when they can't limp back to Starfleet after every fight like the Enterprise can. While it wasn't perfect, it was a pretty neat idea. I also love the design of the ship. Voyager had a very distinct look that neither DS9 or TNG had. I can't put my finger on it, but the Intrepid class is just very neat and interesting to me. Oh, and the music. The music. It's Star Trek. The music, especially the opening theme, is utterly amazing. I'd play it for you, but I don't want to risk the Content ID match. Anyway, what didn't work? Well, a whole lot. Okay, so I touched on this in the summary. Neelix. I'm gonna get this out of the way first. He is insufferable. They write him to be that way, and it's honestly annoying. There's nothing about him that's annoying, it's just what he does. Ethan Phillips is a good actor. Hell, watch literally anything else he was in. He's nothing like Neelix in those. Basically, the writing is a big issue in this series. The guys who created it, Rick Berman and Brandon Braga, are basically the reason that Star Trek Enterprise stunk for 3 seasons until they let Manny Coto take over as showrunner, and Enterprise finally started to get good. But that's another can of worms, more suitable for another review, though. Plus, they took the Borg, who were a formidable foe, who nearly took down the Federation on multiple occasions, and turned them into villains of the week. And the continuity was all over the place, with them running into people that they shouldn't have been running into because they were thousands of light years past their space. Voyager had potential, as do much of the stuff I cover on this show, but it was ruined by all the stuff I mentioned before. How would I fix it? I'd probably take the show and fix the concept a little. Maybe not change all that much, but make Neelix tolerable and give them a decent reason for destroying the array, and not just saving a species with a lifespan slightly longer than a goldfish. Most of the show was pretty good. There was just a lot of issues with the production that made it the much maligned series it is today. And that was Star Trek Voyager, a misguided series that is pretty okay in comparison to some of the other Star Trek related things since. I mean, considering after this we got Enterprise and the J.J. Abrams movies, this is definitely not the worst thing that happened to Star Trek. For all the crap I give it, it's not a bad show, and it's definitely worth a watch. The whole series is on Netflix, and if you want an in-depth look at all the episodes, you can check out SF Debris' opinionated Voyager episode guide at his website. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more How to Fix It, you can hit that subscribe button down there. And if you like, you can also leave a comment in the box below. And if you liked this video, show it to your friends and share it around. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time.
We were in the Badlands one day, chasing B'Elanna and Chakotay. We were whisked into the Delta Quadrant, fuck, that's far away. I wanna go home, please let me go home. Listen to him, I say screw the Ocampa, I wanna go home. The caretaker had an array that could get us home safe. But Janeway, that ignorant slut, she blew it away. I wanna go home, please let me go